There we go. That was just a test to make sure everything's working. Good morning, everybody. It's 9 o'clock. Time for it's a special Planning Commission meeting for the Planning Commission City of Eureka. We couldn't meet in our regular meeting, and so we moved all the agenda items to this one, except for one. If you are here with interest in or to speak on the last agendized element, the City of Eureka housing element update, if you're here for that, it has been bumped. So you're welcome to stay if you want, or if you'd like to take off, that's fine. Otherwise, can we begin with a roll call, Ms. Jessica?
Commissioner Arriaga?
Present.
Commissioner Reagan?
I'm here.
Commissioner Benino?
Present.
And Commissioner Mayer?
Here.
Thank you.
So the record shall show that Professor Ames is playing hooky. I have to get on him. Next item on our agenda is the salute to the flag. Would you join us and stand as Commissioner Benino leads us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item on our agenda is oral communications. So the Brown Act, passed by California so many decades ago, prohibits us from taking action on anything that's not on the agenda. So any of the items on the agenda, you can share your thoughts with us about that item then. But if you want to speak to us about something else, now is your chance. Any takers? Going once? Going twice? Closed. Oral communications is over, so the next item is public hearings. We don't have any continued ones, but we have a new public hearing. Let's take the item at 20 West 3rd Street for a cannabis manufacturing facility use permit, coastal development permit, design review. If we could begin with a staff report.
Good morning. I will be presenting this item on behalf of Raquel Manano, who isn't able to be here today. So we're talking about a volatile cannabis manufacturing facility at 20 West 4th, and we're going to be doing a use permit, a coastal development permit, and doing design review. So we're looking in this part of town, a little bit closer, a little bit closer, a little bit closer. Here's the street view. Here's the rear. So the applicant is proposing a new 4,400 square foot building. It'll involve the demolition of 2 existing accessory structures. They are applying for a conditional use permit, a coastal development permit, design review, and then later on they'll be going through a merger and commercial cannabis license applications. And in addition to the volatile manufacturing, they're also going to be applying for distribution and non-volatile manufacturing. So it's my understanding these are renderings from the website, and they aren't exactly what is going to be there. It's that shape of building and that color, but the doors aren't in the places they're supposed to be. So this is the north and east elevation, but there are no roll-up doors proposed on either side of the structure. The north elevation, there will be a roll-up door on the north side of the structure and 2 standard entrance doors on either side of the roll-up door. South and west elevation, there is a roll-up door on the south elevation, and there will be fencing. So the project is located in the limited industrial zone, in which volatile manufacturing is listed as a conditionally permitted use. The ML zone district is consistent with the underlying light industrial land use designation, and the proposed use is consistent with the general plan. Here is a map showing all the cannabis uses surrounding the facility. The project location is in accord with the objectives of the zone district and the objectives of the coastal zone, as documented in the staff report. The project location and the conditions under which it would be operated or maintained will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or materially injurious to properties or improvements in the vicinity, as documented in the staff report. The conditional use permit is a discretionary action that qualifies for CEQA, but this project qualifies for a Class 32 exemption for infill. The project will comply with the applicable provisions of the code. and the proposed use is consistent with the local coastal program's land use plan and implementation plan. So the recommended conditions of approval: no cannabis plant materials may be visible from the exterior of the property. This includes cannabis plant materials that are present on site, in any buildings at the site, or in any vehicles at the site. The only exception to this condition is during brief periods of loading and unloading. Any volatile manufacturing facility operator, through the commercial cannabis licensing process, will meet with the City of Eureka's Fire Department, Building Department, and Police Department and will implement safety, security, noise, odor control, and other related requirements imposed by those departments. The property owner or volatile manufacturing facility operator will install, operate, and maintain a security system at the subject property which covers the interior and exterior of any building, present or future, and the security system must be designed as a means of deterring and discouraging criminal activity at the property for as long as any business is engaged in the proposed use. Prior to commencement of any demolition, remodeling, or construction, the applicant will obtain all required building and fire permits to the satisfaction of the City of Eureka Public Works Building and Humboldt Bay Fire Departments. And in the event a building permit involving any ground disturbing activity is issued, the city's standard protocol for incidental archaeological discovery, cultural or historical artifacts shall be followed. When the volatile manufacturing facility operator handles hazardous materials at any one time in a quantity equal to or greater than a total weight of 500 pounds, a total volume of 55 gallons, or 200 cubic feet of gas at standard temperature and pressure, the business will report these activities via the California Environmental Reporting System and complete a hazardous materials business plan submitted via SERS. This information must be updated within 30 days of beginning to store chemicals or operation. The non-volatile manufacturing facility operator will maintain improved compliance with all requirements and inspections. Building construction and operation of small volatile cannabis manufacturing facilities on the site will conform to and comply with the conditions of approval adopted for use permit C19-0005. Here is the staff recommendation. So Raquel's recommendation is to adopt 3 separate Planning Commission resolutions to approve with conditions a use permit, design review, and a coastal development permit allowing a small volatile cannabis manufacturing facility at 20 West 3rd Street. I believe the applicant is in the audience.
Okay. So we'll open up a public hearing in a minute for him.
Okay.
So it's our, just so you know, it's our custom here at the Planning Commission to allow the applicant to go first when public testimony. But for right now, does the commission have any questions for staff? I've got a couple.
Okay.
Were the conditions in our packet?
I'm not familiar with the staff report, but I assume so. These are our standard conditions for volatile manufacturing.
Maybe I missed them,
Okay.
but I did not see them. So, for what it's worth, maybe make a note.
Yeah, we could double check the
This commissioner would like to
resolution.
see conditions in the staff packet.
Okay.
Regarding a design review on this particular item, as I understand it, the code requires us to, well, I just read what's in the design review. It says, conditional uses in all districts shall be subject to architectural review by the design review committee. In that case, it's us, because we've got authority over that, and the applicant didn't want to make 2 stops. The Planning Commission should determine whether the proposed structure and parking lot will be inharmonious with the surroundings or will have an adverse effect on the value of property or improvements in the vicinity. The ugly, the inharmonious, the monotonous, and the hazardous shall be barred, but originality in architecture, site planning, and landscape and graphic design shall not be suppressed. I think the building that's proposed is certainly an improvement, but I can't imagine that, no offense to the designer, monotonous seems to just scream from the plans of that building. Do we have any plans or hopes to jazz it up a little bit?
There will be landscaping, so
Okay.
that should be helpful.
All right. Windows, doors, awnings,
Yeah.
facades, murals.
It's an industrial zone,
Understand.
so there's no requirements that they fancy it up, so to speak.
All right.
This is what they're proposing.
Why? I mean, I presume there's a reason our code has industrial properties go through design review, and that process says the ugly, the inharmonious, the monotonous, and the hazardous shall be barred.
Actually, it's going through design review because it's a conditionally permitted use,
Okay.
not for its location.
Okay, all right. Any other questions for staff? All right, so we'll open up a public hearing, and we'd love to begin with the applicant, if you would like to speak. Good morning.
Morning. I'm Patricia Lai. I'm from Mother Earth Engineering, and I'm the principal consultant on the project. So first, I just wanted to say thank you, City of Eureka. I've worked with this group for 3 years. We've done 3 projects in Arcata, 6 projects with the County of Humboldt, and this has been an amazing experience, and the City of Eureka is exemplary in that openness and willing to help us do business. So I just wanted to say, I don't just like Eureka or like Eureka, love Eureka.
Oh,
But to speak to your questions regarding the aesthetic, there is landscaping planned, and we had some talks of potentially engaging with local artists for murals, as is going on in that zone, and we are open to that, but we didn't put that into the plan because, it's undefined.
Right.
So we don't want to have ourselves committed to something that we still haven't fleshed out yet.
Right.
So thank you very much.
thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this item? Like to share your thoughts? I should have mentioned that when you come forward, and you did it, Patricia, right? State your name and residence, just for the record, because this recorded conversation is the official minutes for the meeting, and we want to make sure we're not hearing from any robots today. Last call on this item. All right, so we'll close the public hearing and return it back to the commission for a motion, discussion, and a vote.
Just to discuss what you were saying there. Actually, looking at the site, that building is harmonious with all the other buildings
Yeah,
around
yeah.
it. So I don't think it's out of place. I think actually fancying it up would make it stand out even more. So when you look at Mercer Fraser and the other buildings, that's the traditional style down there in that part of the city. So actually it is harmonious and is traditional. And for that area, it's beautiful.
I would not argue with the inharmonious. Do you feel like it passes the standard of monotonous?
That is the traditional standard down there, is monotonous, and it's beautiful. It does agree with that.
These are the official minutes of the meeting. I just want to assure you, that's in the record. Any other thoughts, comments, motion?
Well, just some thoughts on it, though. I think that it would be interesting to see what you flesh out on this building, just even though it is congruent with everything that's going on down there. But I just think with the cannabis hub and that general part of the city, it would be great to see what would look beautiful and what would look inviting and not just like industrial, as there are so many amazing businesses in that area, and it just creates value across the board. So if you guys have the opportunity to flesh out murals or maybe add awnings along with landscaping, it's just something that I would like to see as I work in that part of the city as well. So just some general thoughts.
And it seems like it would be appropriate to add a condition if this body thought fit, to add a condition to for the builder to add 2 additional decorative items of their choice to the buildings. It could be murals, it could be awnings, it could be trim on the windows. Is there any reason we couldn't do that, Madam Executive Secretary?
No, there is no reason you can't do that.
Why do y'all want me to make the motion? I run the meeting. Y'all should make the motion. I will move that the Planning Commission adopt 3 separate resolutions of the Planning Commission approving the conditions, conditional use permit C-19-5, design review AA-19-0006, and Coastal Development Permit CDP-19-0006 to allow small volatile cannabis manufacturing at 20 West 3rd Street, APN numbers 001, 021, 006, and 007, with the added condition that the applicant add 2 decorative features to the structure, decorative features of their choice approved by staff. 2 decorative features of their choice approved by staff to the building. That's my motion.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on that particular motion? All right, how about
I
yes,
think
yes, sir.
your amendment's a little unfair since their competitors don't have to do the same thing. So I would say I would vote against the motion with that amendment.
So it sounds like we could do a vote. How about a yes, ma'am?
Could I just state for the record, please, that the conditions of approval that you mentioned are included in the second resolution
Right,
that
design review.
you're going to act on?
Thank you. Thank you. All right, any other thoughts, comments before we vote? Let's just do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay.
Oh,
There's 3 ayes and 1 no as I counted, so the motion passes. I don't see any objection. I didn't do anything wrong. All right, in that case, thank you. We'll move on to the next item, which is 524 5th Street, Papa and Barkley Cannabis Retail Conditional Use Permit.
Just for everyone to let the record note that just before any votes are set, I have to recuse myself from this vote based on my employment, so.
Want to begin with a staff report, maybe?
So I'm going to do this one for Lisa Savage, who wasn't able to be here with us this morning. So you are looking today at a conditional use permit for 524 5th Street. The applicant is Papa and Barkley. The project site is the way former location of the coat shop, for those of you who may remember when it was there. The parcel number is 001-146-004, and the zoning is downtown, DT, and the land use designation is downtown commercial, or DC. So if we're looking at Eureka here and zoom in a little closer onto 5th Street, and here is the street view of 5th Street from F Street. Excuse me. And going up the block just a little bit, there is the former coat shop, the current Papa and Barkley location. And another photo there of their storefront. And these are from Google Street View. This location also has a minor use permit that was approved in July of 2018 to operate a non-volatile cannabis manufacturing facility with less than 5,000 square feet of area. And the applicants intend to continue operating the non-volatile cannabis manufacturing in addition to this use permit. So the use permit is for a cannabis retail facility with off-site and or on-site use. This application includes on-site consumption of topicals and edibles. There will be no smoking allowed on the site. And if approved, the use permit applies to the entire 1,144 square foot parcel. It's occupied by the current applicant, and this use permit would apply to that current applicant and any future applicants or businesses. The Planning Commission can choose to approve the project as it's submitted, or they could limit this element of the business operations, or they could limit the use to a specific portion of the building. The municipal code defines a retail facility as a physical retail establishment that can allow the consumption on-site or delivery and consumption off-site of cannabis products. In order to leave the site, the cannabis products must be sealed and packaged in containers. And if consumption on-site occurs and they're taking the rest home with them, the cannabis has to be repackaged by the operator. So staff is recommending that you hold a public hearing and adopt a planning commission resolution approving the use permit with conditions to allow the retail facility with off-site and or on-site consumption of topicals and edibles. And there is a suggested motion for you. The applicants are with us in the audience today, and I'm happy to answer any questions that I can.
Thank you very much. Any questions for staff? Questions about the staff report before we open a public hearing? All right, just for full disclosure, I did represent the property owners on the purchase of this building, but I do not have any interest in this project or the property. I don't have any ongoing interest at this point. So, but just in case you saw my sign on that property a while back. At this point, we'll open up a public hearing for anyone who'd like to come up. We, as I've stated, our customs begin with the applicant, if they'd like to go first. I see movement. Could begin with stating your name and city of residence for our record.
Thank you, Commissioner. My name is John O'Connor from Samoa, California. I'm the Chief Compliance Officer of Papa and Barkley. I'm also the former or current owner of this building, very soon to be former owner, so it's a little bit complicated, so apologies. So this building is currently being used for filling and packaging by Papa and Barkley, which is considered manufacturing. However, the non-volatile cannabis products are made, extracted, and mixed at other facilities in the city, and then are transported over to this site and then filled and packaged. So the intended use for retail in the front would be for occasional retail use, but to effectuate a state license that would allow us to sell at large state events and do direct-to-consumer delivery as well. So the state requires for that license to have a physical location. So we are requesting that this be one of the physical locations. Functionally, the shop would work like a chocolate shop. So some chocolate shops, they don't make their chocolate. They buy it in bulk. They bring it, they melt it down, they package it, and in the front, they've got a small retail shop where you can look through a glass and see that chocolate packaged. However, some of those chocolate shops aren't necessarily manufacturing that chocolate. They're filling and packaging that chocolate, and the retailer comes, the retail customer would come and watch that process. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and just want to let you know Papa and Barkley has just become, I believe, the largest manufacturer in Eureka of any use, with just over 100 employees and just over 200 employees in the state. So very proud to be part of Eureka, as well as a living wage employer that starts our employees at 15 an hour and moves them up to 17 over a year. So thank you for your time and consideration.
Any questions for John? He did offer.
You still have a retail place down on 4th Street, a little ways away, right?
West 4th Street is a non-volatile manufacturing and distribution facility. We also have facilities on 2nd Street, and then down on Broadway, the old Kmart as well.
Okay, so the store there at 4th is no longer there.
It was never a store on West 4th Street. It was always just non-volatile manufacturing and distribution.
But it looked nice enough to be a store.
Yeah, so Papa and Barkley is just a manufacturer and a distributor, and these retail licenses would be sort of ancillary to that main use in town.
I've noticed he's looking a little dark. Do we have a light we could turn on him, or is it out? All right.
Appears to be out.
Okay. We'll work on that next time. Thanks, John. Would anyone else like to speak to this particular item on the agenda? All right, I don't see any movement. Let's return the item to the commission for discussion and a vote. So just to remind you, our rules state that we have to have 3 of our 5 seats to approve anything. So it might appear that two people would be a majority, but that's actually not the case. We have to have three.
I'll make a motion. I move the Planning Commission adopt a resolution approving with conditions the use permit to allow a cannabis retail facility off-site and/or on-site at 524 Fifth Street.
I'll second that.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion before we vote? All right, how about a voice vote? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Silence. That means the motion passes 3-0. All right, thanks. Next item on our agenda is 230 4th Street, a cannabis retail conditional use permit. If we could begin with a staff, oh yeah, thanks for remembering to come back. If we could begin with a staff report on that one.
Okay, so we are talking about a conditional use permit for cannabis retail. So we're in this part of town, a little bit closer on 4th and D. Here's a street view of it. It's the old pawn shop. The applicant is proposing a cannabis retail facility. Retail uses could include dispensary-style retail, delivery, and on-site consumption. Applicant is also applying for commercial cannabis licenses for non-volatile manufacturing and distribution. And a commercial cannabis license for retail is being processed separately. The project is located in the Downtown West District, in which cannabis retail is listed as a conditionally permitted use. Downtown West Zone District is consistent with the underlying downtown commercial land use designation, and the proposed use is consistent with the general plan. The project location is in accord with the objectives of the Downtown West District as documented in the staff report. The project location and the conditions under which it would be operated or maintained will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or materially injurious to properties or improvements in the vicinity as documented in the staff report. And the use permit is a discretionary action subject to CEQA, but the project qualifies for a Class 1 exemption because it's the conversion and minor alteration of an existing structure. The project will comply with the applicable provisions of the code. And the recommended conditions of approval: the retail facility operator will install, operate, and maintain odor control measures that will be reviewed and approved by the city building department prior to operation. The odor control measures are required to be effective at controlling cannabis odors such that no cannabis odors are detectable beyond the parcel, including the public right-of-way and neighboring parcels. The cannabis retail facility operator, through the commercial cannabis licensing process, shall meet with the City of Eureka Fire Department, Building Department, and Police Department, and shall implement safety, security, and other related requirements imposed by those departments. Prior to commencement of any demolition, remodeling, or construction, the applicant will obtain all required building and fire permits to the satisfaction of those departments. In the event that a building permit involving any ground disturbing activity is issued, the city's standard protocol for incidental archaeological discovery shall be followed. There we go. The property owner or retail facility operator will install, operate, and maintain a security system. And the staff recommendation is to approve the use permit allowing cannabis retail at this location.
Thanks. Any questions for staff on this one? If I printed the packet out correctly, there's a development services memo at the end of this packet from May 21st. We've seen it before. It involves its background of cannabis regulations and on-site consumption and all those kinds of things. Is there a reason that was included in this particular item? Did I even?
It's just a memo that covers on-site consumption so that the commission could be aware of what we're asking of applicants.
Okay. All right. Any questions for staff on this particular report? I appreciate you including that. It's always nice to kind of get refreshed, but I was curious why that one and not the others. All right, so at this point, we'll open up a public hearing. We can begin with the applicant, if you would like. We're as you can tell, we're really safe. We're friendly.
Yes, very friendly. No. Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for letting us take a few moments to speak. My name is Kelly Flores. I'm with Margaret Advisors. We are the agent consultants for HTC, who is doing this project. I just wanted to take a minute to say thank you to the City of Eureka. We have been working for the past 3 years with the County of Humboldt on applications that are continuing to await review and processing. And so the City of Eureka has been an amazing breath of fresh air in our experience and in working with the client. This is a wonderful project. I think it's an ideal opportunity to give a small business that is looking to develop in its hometown. The owners are 8-year residents of the City of Eureka. They're raising their young children here. They're a couple, Marjo Ribiera and her husband Andy are the owners. They have a small farm in southern Humboldt and are looking to expand the development of the industry here in Humboldt and in the City of Eureka, and their home is a perfect just blend of developing where you live. They're looking forward to bringing jobs and new opportunities as part of this project to beautify the city with a very artistic exterior, as well as working within the cannabis community to support local sun-grown farmers and encourage sustainable products and bringing those to market. So we are very excited and very proud to work with them on this project, and believe that it will be an ideal opportunity to showcase the City of Eureka and what our local community brings to the industry, as well as an opportunity to bring tourism in to showcase local sun-grown products on site and to let folks know around the world about this. So if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. Since you did offer, any questions for Ms. Flores? All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And thanks for the kind words about city staff. You guys do a fabulous job. Congratulations. Anyone else like to speak to this item? No? All right, we'll return this item to the commission for motion, discussion, and a vote.
I move the Planning Commission adopt a Planning Commission resolution approving with conditions a use permit C-19-0006, was that too many zeros, allowing cannabis retail with the off-site and/or on-site consumption of cannabis at 234th Street.
I second that.
Got a motion and a second. I know it's not fair that you have to make the motion all the time. Other guys should jump in every now and then. Any discussion on that particular item?
Once again, I'm really not satisfied that allowing smoking inside these facilities is safe or applicable, considering that you can't smoke in cigarettes in restaurants and things like that. So I'm really not in favor of on-site smoking.
Yep, does seem like an inconsistency there, doesn't it? However, the law is the law, and so this is not a opportunity for us to relitigate the code. It's an opportunity for us to apply the code, and so the question before us is, has this applicant met the current conditions of the code? So, any other discussion, thoughts? Okay, how about a voice vote? All those in favor say aye.
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 No.
All those opposed say no.
No.
It's 3 yeses and 1 no, so the motion passes. So congratulations. Next item on our agenda. Let's see, Waterfront Drive, the Waterfront Development Project, public restrooms, recreational facilities, and commercial hospitality. I presume, and it's always interesting when we have a meeting and the house is full and no one talks for the first 3 items and the last one comes up. Makes me wonder what you guys are thinking. But let's begin with the staff report, and then you can tell us.
So we're going to discuss the waterfront development project, which is down off of Waterfront Drive.
I like the way you added the water drops on there.
I thought that was
Very
good, thank you.
creative. I like that.
So they're proposing public restroom facilities, a recreational facility, and commercial hospitality at the site. And to my recollection, we've not brought just a CEQA document to you for action. Usually we bring the whole project with, use permits, CDPs, whatever. However, the item before you today will allow the city to apply for grant funding for the project, and granting authorities are requiring that the environmental document be approved prior to application. CEQA does require you to approve the project in order to approve the CEQA, and we've provided the general project information without the minute details, such as what kinds of trees they're going to be. Those details will be included in the use permit and the coastal development permit, which will come to you at some future date. So we're located here on the northerly littoral edge of the city, under the Samoa Bridge. The project will be located on both the west side and east side of the bridge. And here's a view looking west from T Street and northeasterly from Waterfront Drive. North from the boat launch parking lot, and the little red building in the background there will be one of the buildings that's demolished. Looking northwest from the parking lot again, you can see the top of the boat launch facility there, kind of right in there. And then this is looking southeasterly back towards T Street from the boat launch parking lot. The red restroom building, as I mentioned, will be demolished, and then construction also will include the addition of a floating dock to the existing boat launch ramp. There'll be a structure here. Hang on 2 seconds. That will be the 6,000 square foot public restroom and commercial facility. Over here on the right-hand side will be an office facility, and then the recreational and hospitality will be the recreational vehicle park. When the MND was out for its 30-day public comment period, we did actually receive some comments from a couple of different agencies. CEQA does not require that the city provide a response to those comments. However, in this particular instance, we did choose to provide responses, and those are included in your staff report. The comments were from the local Native American tribes, the Coastal Commission, and the Regional Water Quality Control Board. And, sorry, it's a duplicate there. There's also one correction that needs to be made in the hydrology section of the mitigated neg deck. The finished floor elevation is listed as 12 feet, and it should be corrected to say 15 feet. So we also did receive one comment letter on the project yesterday, and that letter was provided to you via email and then a hard copy today, and there's a hard copy available for the public to review here. So we're recommending today that you hold a public hearing, adopt findings of fact, the response to comments and the correction, a mitigation monitoring and reporting program, and a mitigated negative declaration. And there's a suggested motion for your use. I'm happy to answer any questions that I can, and the applicants are with us in the audience today.
Okay, any questions for staff before we open up a public hearing?
15 feet, that's above what? The floor level, you said?
15 feet above the ground?
Right, okay. That's going to be the floor level of the facility.
Correct, yes.
Could you So the city will have the city is one of the applicants.
Correct.
The city is going to be building an RV park on city property, correct?
The city and the Schneider Boaties.
The city opening up a business, in essence, is kind of an odd duck. Could you speak to how that happened and how that's going to be managed, how the city arrived at this being the highest best use for this property?
Sure. For those kinds of details, could we refer to the applicants?
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
I'd also like to say, Miles Slattery, the Community Services Director for the City of Eureka. I'd like to say that city staff are excellent as well. So the history for this project is we put out an RFP in 2017, I believe late or early 2018, for proposals for development of this property. This property is a part of the Long Range Property Management Plan. It used to be in the redevelopment agency. So the requirement was to put out an RFP requesting people to propose development for it. And the Long Range Property Management Plan, this property is listed as to be used as tourist serving and recreation. And so we kind of wrote the RFP based on that. Staff put out the RFP, received response. That response was reviewed, recommended to the council to go with Schneider Enterprises to develop the property. Council approved that. We got into an exclusive right to negotiate with Schneider Enterprises. That was approved by council. So the next step in the process is to finish CEQA and then move on to a DDA, a disposition and development agreement, which is a part of the Long Range Property Management Plan. And so after CEQA is done, that's what we'll do. So that's the history behind that portion of the project. As far as the portion related to the boat launch, city staff put in a grant application with the Department of Boating and Waterways. The grant application initially was for not only planning but also for development of the property. They came back and said they wanted to just give us planning money, and so they gave us $200,000 to do the design and permitting related to a new boat launch for non-motorized vessels, demolishing the existing restroom facility and building a new restroom facility. And it also includes an overlay and some lighting and new striping in the parking lot. So that's the history for both of the projects there. As far as the project itself, the plan, what we did is for efficiencies, because they're both on the same property, is to have CEQA done based on both of these kind of projects because it's on the same property. When we go to the regulatory permitting, since the RV portion of the project is in the city's jurisdiction and the boat launch portion of the property goes into the Coastal Commission's jurisdiction, the city will be applying for a coastal development permit related to the boat launch facility and the upgrades to that, and the applicant, or Schneider Enterprises, will be submitting a coastal development permit with the city of Eureka.
So I presume that is there, I can't imagine a city is going to be running an RV park.
No, so that's why the disposition and development agreement is in place.
Mm-hmm.
So the plan is to have that approved by council, and that'll consist of basically the city holding the note on the property. The Schneider Enterprises will take a loan out from the city, and a part of that disposition and development agreement is basically we will not sell that note until that development happens. And so they'll put a down payment, hold the note for that. They will develop the property, and then at that point in time, they can buy out the note from us. And so we will not be operating any sort of
Right, and so
RV
at that
park or
point,
anything.
the Schneider Properties will own the whole property. The
Yes,
city is basically going to sell it
yes.
to them. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Slattery while he's here?
I'm just wondering if there's going to be any effect on the events that have been held down near that property?
No, so that's always been used as kind of just like overflow parking. We have pretty adequate parking there. We've on the west side of the bridge there, that'll also be a part of this eventually. As far as the kinetic sculpture race, those type of things, actually Bikers by the Bay plan on doing it next year down there. Halverson Park itself will always be available for events. As a matter of fact, we're looking at potentially bringing in more events there on Labor Day and other times of the year.
And they're aware of that?
Yes, and also that other portion of the property, which is on the west side of the boat launch, that is also going to be a part of this disposition and development agreement. And part of that will be an agreement with the Humboldt Bay Rowing Association so that their facility will remain in place, and they'll also still be able to get a long-term lease for a very, very low rate like they currently are in.
You read my mind. That was my next question.
too.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah. Any other questions for Miles?
So the city's gonna sell the whole property to the Schneider and Bodie people, is that it?
Yes.
And how about the boat launch too? Is that?
Boat launch will have an easement for that, and as well as portions of the waterfront trail go onto that property, and so we'll make sure that when we do that agreement and sell it, that those easements maintain and stay in place, so we'll still be operating the boat launch facility and maintaining it, as well as the public restroom and the waterfront trail that goes into that property.
And the reason for tearing down the restrooms that the city already put there?
The reason is because that has been, there's a lot of inappropriate uses there. It's not out in the open, and so we want to relocate that. It also has some ADA issues with it. It's ADA compliant, but it's not up to the standards that we would like to have, and so we want to relocate that and put it more out in the open because EPD would like that, we would like that, it'd be more visible, and people would probably feel more comfortable when it's more out, closer to the road and out in the open.
Let's see. And then for hospitality, you're talking like a snack bar or something, or?
The intent is to put kind of, kayaks, stand-up paddle boards, those type of things, and that would be run by Schneider Enterprises, but there would be a combination of a public restroom with that facility there so that they could rent out those things. That's the reason why we're putting in that non-motorized vessel there, is we're trying to get a bunch of native boat launches. We're installing a new one down on Elk River by Pound Road. We have the one behind Target. We have the one on the Hickshari Trail. We want a non-motorized vessel location there so that people can go out and do stand-up paddle boards, kayaks, those type of things.
Is that launch gonna get widened, or is it gonna be, just stay the same?
It'll stay the same. It's pretty wide right now, and we have obviously dredged recently, and so we're gonna not only put in a new non-motorized floating dock there, but also replace the existing floating dock on the other side there too.
So that wouldn't prohibit motorized boats from launching there, would it?
It won't at all.
Okay.
It won't at all. There's actually enough for 2 lanes. There's some people don't back up very well, but there technically is enough room for two lanes there for already existing, and we're not going to go into that footprint at all. It'll be more on the riprap that's off to the west of there.
And the report mentioned a caretaker is gonna be living there, is that correct? And,
That will be a part of the RV park.
okay, so they'd be in an RV, not in a permanent structure, in other words.
That would be a question, probably in that office area that's on the other side, on the east side of the property.
Okay.
Any other questions for Miles? Do we have any economic studies about how many folks we expect to use the RV park and what kind of economic impact it might have on the area?
So we, the one that Schneider Enterprises currently operates, the Shoreline RV Park, is it's 100% full. We intend this to be definitely more desirable than that. It'll be right next to a boat launch facility, especially during the fishing season. We think that this is going to be a really appropriate location for that, for those purposes. Waterfront Drive being connected now and being able to go into Old Town there, I think that this will hopefully encourage more development. We just got into an exclusive right to negotiate with England Marine to relocate their facility across from the Wharfinger, and we're hoping that this will bring more development down to the waterfront.
And understand that market forces are going to determine occupancy probably more than anything once we're down the road. But is the long-term idea, some kind of occupancy limit to encourage turnover and true tourism, or is it more towards a long-term occupancy where folks could live in their RVs for years?
No, it is definitely more short-term. And that is the intention of this. When we get into the disposition and development agreement, we'll probably get more into those semantics, and that'll come to council, and we'll have those discussions. That's definitely been an issue that's been brought up previous to this. But if you look at the current location at Shoreline RV Park, there's nurses that come in and do longer-term stays, but typically it's the short-term coming through and see the redwoods type of stays that you're getting there.
Any other questions for Miles?
And we do generate TOT from it, too.
So in order to generate TOT, it's got to be less than 30 days, correct?
Correct.
Thank Thanks, sir. If
Thank
we
you.
think of anything else, we might holler back at you.
Much appreciated.
Okay. So this is still the staff portion of the questions for staff. Does anyone have any other questions of other staff members before we open up a public hearing? Okay, so we'll open up a public hearing. As I said before, if the applicant would like to go first, you don't have to say anything, but if you'd like to, this is your chance. Otherwise, anyone like to, yes, come on forward and just state your name, city of residence for the record.
Good morning, I'm Sarah Trapphagen, and I live in Myrtletown area, and I'm a member of the Humboldt Bay Rowing Association. And my concern or question is adding another floating dock on the west side of Samoa Bridge. It's difficult when you're in a 65-foot boat and people are launching, if you're adding another floating dock. Is that an appropriate congestion area? It's hard enough when there's just motorboats, and we have to oftentimes dock based on the tidal run. And so my question is, where's the floating dock going to be accommodated in the existing space? Thank you.
Great question. I don't know, can we get the slide up and maybe we can answer that question right now. Miles, you want to
So the
grab the laser pointer and show us?
So you see the purple where Kristen is pointing at right now. So that's, if you see the footprint of the boat launch there, it's going to remain right now. That area there where the purple is existing riprap. That's going to be opened up and removed, and so the width of that dock is going to stay the same. The access to that dock is going to stay the same, and that non-motorized launch is going to be off to the side of that launch right there. That existing launch there is probably about 35 feet wide, which is pretty wide. The non-motorized new dock there will be definitely off of that footprint, and so that same access will be there. It's not going to infringe upon that access. And as far as Humboldt Bay Rowing Association, yes, they do launch there, but the dock to the left is one that is owned. So right here, that is owned by the Humboldt Bay Rowing Association. This is where their building is. That is typically where they take their sculls and launch. They typically do not go down here. It's a pretty good distance to get your sculls all the way down there to do that. So this dock, I mean, I'm sure they do use it sometimes, but this is typically what they use, and that's their dock that they own, and they own that dock there. It's not a city-owned dock.
Okay, all right, thanks.
And just for clarity, the dock is 100 feet. It will extend out 100 feet.
So how far, can you show us 100 feet on this map?
100 feet is the purple.
Okay. That's what I thought. Yes, ma'am, Miss Sarah, is that right? So we'll give you, so we limit folks to 3 minutes. We'll give you the other 2 minutes of your time.
The issue ends up being is that when we're going with the tide and turning a 65-foot boat around, we usually have to go under the bridge and then come back along the frontage of that area. So that's an issue that if you're encouraging people to be in kayaks and you've also got motorboats, we have to pass that dock. Is there any reason that the dock could not be put on the other side of the Samoa Bridge? I know you have existing permit, but it would at least diversify motorboats, small kayaks, paddle boarders, people with dogs in their boats and dogs on their paddle boats, and our 65-foot boat. So it's just a question about logistics, and we also extend out 24 feet. So our boats are 65 feet long, 25 feet wide.
Yep. The great news is that what's before us right now is just the environmental permit. So I would encourage you, grab a hold of Miles. This is a long project and nothing is set in stone at this point, but grab a hold of Miles and give your input as to what would be best. And I'm sure, I often call this room right here the city's living room. This is where the family gathers to talk about family business because we all want what's best, right? So I'm sure the process will be open to your input there. Anyone else like to speak to this particular item?
name is Stan Stamps. I'm a resident on First Street. One of the few residents on the street. It's been in my family for 70 years. My concern on the project down there is the drainage of the water, or the runoff water that goes through the streets and into the what we call the railroad ditch, where the ditch tries to get rid of the water through the bay. It's a mess. I get flooded out every couple years with water backing up by the Eureka boiler works. They've had issues too where they right next to where this project's going. I'm not against the project, but the drainage down there, it needs to be completely rerouted. Whether it goes out to the bay, whether it's a Corps of Engineers project or what, something needs to be done down there. So we don't know. The city's ditch, are they responsible? Is it defunct railroad that is in bankrupt? Is that their problem? It all comes down into there. So as far as
Great question. Thanks for raising that point. Miles, you might have a committee right here of folks to help you out. You have some thoughts?
Yeah, so there'll be improvements right now. Currently, this is T Street. Right now, it's somewhat paved, somewhat gravel. There'll be improvements. This sidewalk here will extend around this radius and come up and make connectivity to an existing path that gets you to the waterfront trail.
So you guys there's a map back there. Miles is using the laser pointer here. If you want to come forward so you can see, that's perfectly fine.
Okay, I apologize. And so as part of this project, those improvements to T Streets are going to happen. So not only the pedestrian connectivity, but also this T Street that goes and connects to Front Street here is going to be improved as well, because this will be one of the exits that come out of there. And so some of those drainage issues that Mr. Stamps is talking about will be addressed with curb and gutter. We have an existing stormwater drain pipe that comes into here and ends up out into the bay. And so that will be connected to that, and so it could help alleviate some of that runoff that's going into the ditch that he's talking about that comes down T Street. As far as the overall development here, there's a requirement with our state's and stormwater NPDES permit to retain the 85th percentile storm. That's why there's so much vegetation here. That's also why this is a bioretention swale that will be all the way along the northern edge there, so that all runoff from this new impervious space will go into those locations so that they can be treated and retained on site and be in compliance with the stormwater. So it won't increase the velocities or be going on to other people's property. And there'll be improvements from the current issues on T Street that are going on to other people's property based on the road improvements that'll have to be made.
And then the swale you mentioned, is there going to be an increased elevation there, and how high?
It's going to be actually depressed.
Okay.
And so that was one of the comments that was brought up by the local tribes, was that we would consult with them on the type of plantings for that, because they want to maintain the viewshed of Indian Island and those things. Okay. And so we'll be consulting with them as far as what is planted into that. But it's a depression. The runoff flows into that. It gets retained. It infiltrates. It stops the velocity from increasing and also treats any sort of pollutants from the runoff.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that answer. Any other public comments that you'd like to speak to? Yes, come on up. And like I said, we use the mic can be intimidating, but it's just the way that we have our official record. State your name and city residence, please, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Sari Baker. I live at on 1739 3rd Street, and my husband and I own a business on 1827 3rd Street. And I really enjoy using the waterfront trail currently, and we live right next to the Red Lion Inn, which is, I understand, the largest hotel in the county. And their guests really also enjoy using the waterfront trail. And primarily, I've noticed that at this point, they're using the T Street trailhead for access. And I was just curious as to what that would look like. I'm hoping it would be maintained. It's right there at Front Street, and it looks like it runs right along the border of the proposed development. And so I'm just curious as to what pedestrian access across Waterfront Drive is going to look like, and what trailhead parking if there's going to be any, is going to look like, and what that trail is going to look like after this project is finished.
Great question. This is normally not a question and answer session, but Miles, since you're here, you should have just sat over here in this chair and you could have
So that was another comment that was made by the Coastal Commission. Our intention was always to make those improvements. So right now, if you look at T Street, there is not pedestrian access on here. It's just a gravel road. So this existing sidewalk here along Waterfront Drive is going to wrap around, make connectivity to here. That trail that you're talking about there is going to be maintained, and that's going to be have access to there. This has never been used as a trailhead. We kind of more so use the Samoa parking lot for that, and those improvements there will enhance that, well as not only the bathrooms, but also with new ADA parking that'll be associated there, and new striping. So this will serve as the public trailhead access for the Waterfront Trail. There'll also be improvements made as far as crosswalks and, you know, those type of things on T Street where that intersection is, so that there'll be safer access for pedestrian access to the Waterfront Trail.
Thank you, sir. Did that answer all your questions?
Can I, just one more?
Sure.
Is there going to be any sort of fence or barrier around the RV park?
So I don't believe there's any intent. The current one at Shoreline RV Park, there is no fence around it. That would also be an issue as far as blocking the view shed. If we were to do that, there may be some sort of live fence or something, but there's no intent in the plans currently for any sort of fencing that's around any of the property. Correct?
And so a live fence, as I understand it, is like a hedge, like planting, vegetation that would, yes?
Travis Schneider, Eureka, California. I can answer. At this time, we don't propose a fence. As we say, fences only keep honest people honest. They don't seem to really have a great deal of effect here in the city of Eureka. They just seem to be cut through or driven through more often than not. And it doesn't really lend itself well to the atmosphere that we're trying to create here as far as visitor serving and, a community-friendly park. So
Right.
at this time, no.
Right. Excellent.
Just ask one more question.
Okay, last one.
So how wide is the actual trail going to be? It just looks like the barrier is really...
But you got to ask it into the microphone because this is our official record.
How wide is the trail easement going to be?
So it's going to be the footprint of it. I mean, if you're talking about the one that access from T Street onto the Waterfront Trail there, that'll be maintained. It'll be cleaned up, and we're looking at grant funding right now. We have about $450,000 to build a playground. Sorry, Swan, I just got you. Over in the Halverson Park area, kind of by Saco Amphitheater. And as a part of that, we're looking to refurbish this old portion of the Halverson Trail and also this portion here. As a part of that, we're hoping that we can upgrade this too. Currently, that is about 8 feet wide.
Yeah.
And so, if we make enhancements, it'll probably just most likely be an overlay to it, not necessarily widening it. Because there's a ditch on the other side here, and we would have wetland issues making it any wider than that.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
But I certainly encourage everyone, the city makes the best decisions when all of its citizens chip in and give their wisdom. So if you have thoughts on the best practices here, don't be afraid to call Miles. Drew a blank. I nearly called you Martin. Call Miles or just call City Hall in general and have your input. Yes, ma'am.
Speaking directly into the mic. My name is Denise Riles. I live at 203 S Street, and I have a business at 202 T Street. Now, beginning in 2017, Councilwoman Kim Burgell was very nice in gathering Mr. Miles Slattery and Greg Sparks for our Neighborhood Watch meeting concerning this project. As we can see, and that's why my neighbor Sari is asking so many questions, because our conversation, none of our concerns looks like have been addressed. Which we are very concerned about. And also, no discussion was made about the little tent camping area. Now, I'm here to remind the city planners, Mr. Slattery and Mr. Schneider, that we consider ourselves a neighborhood first. And whatever happens down there, we have to live with. Now, only one councilwoman has been there and has shown how we as a community and neighbors actually use this property. This property in question, we use to keep out of the way of things that are happening, like the kinetic sculpture race, like the dog, wolf stalk, and all of that. We kind of use this to keep out of everybody's way. We run our dogs in there. Sometimes we go onto the trail, and sometimes we do not. And in regards to the Red Lion that has been mentioned, the people want to see wild. They are so excited walking down in the middle of T Street. I see them in front of my shop business coming down to see the wildness. They enter from that gravel road and kind of scooter. They either go through the rock barrier into there, or they take the little T Street side of the trail, and I do too. And this is the time where we can think bigger and more for the future. Is this what our future is going to look like? I have to look at this every day, and I want people coming to my neighborhood like myself who live there and work there. We are invested. None of the people who are coming down here will be invested in our neighborhood. So I want to put that, and I would love, on the record, to put forward another meeting, if you guys can come, and really address us and let us show you how this works. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your input. Appreciate that. Anyone else? Have you already spoken? Come on up. For the record, you get one shot at this, okay?
Okay, well, the
All right.
stamps on First Street again. I have one question that just came to mind.
Okay.
The demolition.
Good. Step up and speak into the mic.
Demolition of the restrooms on the boat launch. If they tear that down, will they put another rest area or porta potties or what for the people that launch boats? And we have the heavy population of homeless down in that area.
I believe that large box to the right there, yes, my pen now points with the laser. That is a public restroom.
Okay.
So regarding who uses it, whether they be homeless or not, I don't know.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, we'll close our public hearing. In my living room, when we have a family meeting, there used to be 8 children. And some of them love sushi, a couple of them hate it. Some of them love spaghetti, a couple of them hate it. You know, sometimes we had to make dinner choices that most liked and some didn't, and tried to make it up in other ways. And I mean, that's the nature. We have our City of Eureka living room, and we all come together. My understanding is this has already gone through, the whole project as a whole has already gone through the vetting process, and it's moving forward. The only question before us at this point is the environmental report. And so there's still some design elements that we have choices over moving forward, but as I understand it, the project is moving forward. Wild has been eliminated as a possibility. Is that correct?
I would say yes.
Yep.
Yes, as I said previously, the long-range property management plan for this property has listed this property to be developed and sold
Right.
or leased for the purposes of tourist serving or recreation.
Right.
And we
Yep.
felt that this was an appropriate development that serves those purposes.
Yep. So I mean, sometimes you get involved and give your input, and sometimes a majority of people want sushi, and we got to wait for spaghetti. I mean, that's just kind of the way it works.
And if I could add, the public will have at least one more opportunity to comment before a hearing body when the use permit and the coastal development permit
Yep.
come forward here. There will also be hearings with the Coastal Commission on the boat launch.
Good. And then, of course, if this project passes those hurdles, then there will be design hearings here. I think I heard you say that.
I believe those design hearings will happen at the same time as the use permit and the CDP.
Okay.
So
Joe, you're grabbing your mic.
So I see now, I missed that. There's a little campground area there off on the right. Okay, I didn't see where that was. It's on to the right of the big parking lot. So this is like just a walk-in campground from the parking lot. Is that what's going on?
You really should have sat up here, Miles.
Yeah. So similar to other RV parks, KOAs, those type of things, there's typically an area where you can tent camp. It'll be a paid-for service. It's not going to be come and set up a tent and you're good. It'll be private property at that point in time, and so it'll be a paid-for tent. And the reason why that location there is that, as far as the wetlands and delineations, we put that there because there's a potential for a wetland in a close proximity to there, and that way it makes it easy for us to ship the development outside of that 100-foot buffer from that potential wetland, so that we put that in as a placeholder.
I see. And the caretaker, you said, is probably going to be in this office area right next to this little.
Correct.
So that would be for folks that don't have an RV but still want to camp. They can rent a tent space, or if an RV has they got some kids that want to camp out, they probably have to be old enough to do that. Anyway, they'll work that out.
Yeah, exactly. And we also have a lot of touring bicyclists that come through town, and I think that would be a good accommodation for them as they come through town on their long bike rides.
All right, so no one else for the public hearing. We'll close public hearing, move the item back to the council for a motion and discussion and a vote. And the suggested motion, the only thing we are voting on, or the only thing that's before us today, is the mitigated negative declaration, which basically says that the environmental study that has been done is sufficient and we don't need to do any more studies. Is that correct?
Yes. In the
Right answer.
Yes, but in the MND, there are some additional steps that will be taken before the project is finally approved. So just to be clear on that.
Yep.
And also just to be clear, you are approving the project today, and I think of it more as a conceptual approval of the project because you don't have all of those details yet. And it's entirely possible that, the layout of the project is going to change slightly. That will come back to you at some point in the future. And if necessary, the MND can be amended or recirculated or whatever is necessary. So we would continue to comply with the CEQA regulations going forward.
Yep. You've made two motions today. I've made one.
I move the Planning Commission of the City of Eureka to adopt a resolution adopting findings of fact, the response to comments and correction, a mitigation, monitoring, and reporting program, and a mitigated negative declaration to allow waterfront development, public restroom, recreational facility, and commercial hospitality at 1535 Waterfront Drive.
That's supposed to be a period right there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Finished. Period.
Anyone want to second that?
I'll second it.
All right, it's a motion and second. Discussion. I would like to discuss just real briefly. I appreciate Humboldt Baykeeper's letter. Looks like they caught a typo on the elevation and stuff, but it seems like to me this project deals, as it was given to us, deals with a lot of the concerns that they raise. Appreciate them raising those concerns, but I didn't see anything there that would make me want to stop the project. But I did want to acknowledge that we got that letter from them. Any other discussion on the motion that's before us? Let's do a roll call vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed say nay. That's Joe. Yep, so the 4 votes for it, no votes against it, motion passes unanimously. All right, next item on our agenda. City of Eureka Housing Element, as I mentioned before, has been rescheduled. The next item is adjournment. Do we have any last reports or anything before we do that?
Just on the housing element, just to let you know, We had planned to do a presentation to you today. We did receive a letter from the State Department of Housing and Community Development. There are some comments that they've made that are requiring us to reevaluate, review, possibly even slightly modify what is proposed. So we decided to go ahead and pull this off the agenda today, and we will be working to schedule a study session with the City Council and the Planning Commission. We're looking to do that the last week of September, which is only one day, / the first week of October. And then there would be another joint study session the week of, I believe it's the 21st of October. And then it would come back to the Planning Commission for your recommendation to council at a public hearing.
And everyone got those emails, right? Okay. Any other reports, questions before we adjourn? Any objection to adjourning? So be it. We are adjourned. Thanks.